Değerli katılımcılar, Marmara Uluslararası Kent Forumu MARUF 2000.
Welcome to the third day of MARUF. We're left to one another. Welcome to the panel called Reinforcing Solidarity. My name is Serkan Kerkel. I'm working as the manager of external affairs. I'm working on the NGO migrant situation. I will be the moderator. I'll give you some brief information about the panel. As you know, during the COVID-19 period, it's important to see how social solidarity is important where the population is concentrated in the during the pandemic period. The work done, especially in crisis periods such as the pandemic, to be able to establish fast communications, organization, having sufficient resources, and having flexible working possibilities. Local governments, NGOs, are dealing with the social, logistic, and other infrastructure problems, and they are creating innovative ideas and strategies. And during this change that our world is undergoing, and their effects socially and otherwise, at the same time, we see good examples of solidarity, especially the distribution of social aids. Those who need and stakeholders who wish to provide aid, and the networks are creating important work where 25 civil society organizations come together both during this COVID-19 and disasters. It's a serious initiative. At the same time, the governor's office, the social aid units of municipalities gave efficient results, especially during crisis times. The importance of common areas came about, and in terms of collectively and productively working. At the same time, the entrepreneurs at the universities, NGOs, and public institutions came together and to provide innovative solutions for the problems that came about. At the same time, there are many examples during the period of COVID-19 with the civil initiatives, with social innovations. The public and other sectors cooperated. We could take some distance. In this panel, we will have the solidarity approaches of local governments, and international and national organizations did some work to create public health and the effects of employment in the economic area, along with the effects of COVID-19, the new strategies which are developed, models, and good application examples will be seen. We will have 3 panelists to speak, and the final section we'll have a Q&A session. It's very important to ask questions to the panelists, so you can write your question in the Q&A section. Now I will leave the floor to the panelists. First of all, especially in Turkey and the world, one of the leading institutions, Turkish Red Crescent's branch manager, Kadem Ekşi, will be speaking. He will talk about what type of preparations and specific to Istanbul, the work, the projects, the examples of solidarity. That's what I would like to listen from you. You hear me now? Thank you, Serkan Bey. And we salute our listeners, our audience. And naturally, especially with global climate change, and our cities are facing threats towards the future. We have some major crises. This can be a pandemic, as in the COVID process, It could be floods and fires, as our geographies are threatened by these. Drought and flood, the supply of water, and similar problems are also occurring. These break our resistance. In the framework of a sustainable future, we have a problem with a healthy and resilient city. We need some major efforts for the whole humanity. Solution producing cities was a theme for us to move together. It's a very well chosen main point of exit and resistance. I hope that the whole of humanity, all of us, will be away from ambition and greed for the future of our cities. We will strengthen our capacity. I'm going to take into consideration general theme. Both every crisis and disaster. If we are going to be building these cities, we can turn from crisis management to risk management, and we need to act fast. All of the NGOs strengthen their capacity. As the Turkish Red Crescent, we are rapidly going into this process within the scope of risk mitigation, including seismic risks, in order to create these resilient cities. In our cities, which have the risk of earthquake, as NGOs and scientists, we are accelerating the organization process. Within this scope, in every area of life, we are creating resilience. We have this obligation. We take care of this, and we have trying to develop the possibility of acting in unison. In Istanbul, as Turkish Red Crescent, within the scope of basic disaster threats, against every risk, we are strengthening and for cooperation for the entire Istanbul with 39 branches. At the moment of crisis, our intervention capacity will be developed. We are trying to create it rapidly. We are developing this cooperation with AFAD. We are also doing these ourselves and updating them. And here in the scope of urgent action plan, for the we are spending efforts for the first point. Here we have temporary housing areas, safe living areas at the time of crisis where we should be running, as in Tokyo, as in Japan. These temporary housing areas, we are cooperating and we are trying to do them ourselves in a park. As far as the mitigation of seismic risk for our schools to be made safe and fixing furniture, especially the Turkish, within the scope of the Turkish disaster intervention programs, areas handled by Red Crescent, all the food, drink, and container or tanks services like that are going to be appropriated and mobilized for our citizens. Istanbul's 960 neighborhoods, we have a city of 18 million population. In terms of basic disaster and rapid intervention, we have a widespread training process in all 39 townships. We are trying to do it with 150,000 volunteers. You see some examples of projects from food banking to the solidarity groups, especially in this pandemic. Our citizens' food and housing requirements have been met rapidly. In the COVID-19 period, what the Turkish Red Crescent did, let's look at it rapidly, especially in terms of cash assistance. We met people's requirements with 35 million liras. For their food requirements, we had 336 food packages. We assisted our people in terms of hygiene and other areas. We had 663,000 people were helped and supported as Red Crescent with the financial assistance we gathered from our citizens. Similar things happened during the forest fires. We had 680,000 people were supported with human aid support, tens of thousands of volunteers, and 15,000 volunteers were on the field for logistic and support. Again, here, especially in terms of cash aid, 23 million liras were collected, and we sent it to our people, and we are addressing their wounds. We are present in crisis management, but more effective work is required for the crisis times. We had a cash support of 18 million liras for the Western Black Sea floods, and the Red Crescent is for everyone. And within the scope of the Red Crescent, we did this work with our volunteers and our personnel. Especially for migrants, we provide support in every area, and 2.5 million people are benefiting from them through Red Crescent cards. We have cash transfers. There's beyond the border assistance to reconnect family ties and children's assistance. Here the target for the European Union. The EU has some commitments in order to increase social resilience. As the Red Crescent, the main theme is fight against poverty, and we are supporting people suffering from migration. We are working for society, a society-based work, and for resilient cities against disasters, a more livable environment. And in this theme, the training and other subjects, we increase our capacity as a society. Within the scope of fight against disasters, as the Red Crescent, we have responsibilities such as food, housing, and other logistic services. Our people's communication, psychosocial supports, logistic international cooperation. In Istanbul, our disaster intervention capacity is increased as the Red Crescent, as a NGO, to assist our citizens. Our citizens had some serious problems in terms of blood services. We sent 10,000 units of blood to our citizens every morning, and we're establishing 39 blood receiving units at the city squares in Istanbul. We are increasing our service capacity. Thank you very much. We are giving the floor to our other colleagues. Thank you very much, Mr. President. especially in the crisis, the transition from crisis management to risk management. In risk management, a good preparation in order to achieve this work before disasters are very valuable and important. In recent times, Turkey had many disasters, earthquakes, fires, the COVID-19 problem, and I think that in the coming projections, these should be taken into our pockets, and a better risk management, better crisis management will be carried out, hopefully altogether. Thank you very much again.
Now, I would like to founding member of Melisi company, Ezgi Demirda. And she's going to speak about the impact on the employment side. McKinsey has got very important reports and studies our feature businesses and the futuristic approaches in COVID-19 pandemic's impacts and post-COVID phases are the general scope of your researches. And for the future of our actually business, which trends will be stable and will survive? And with those findings, actually, how we can enhance the solidarity among different sectors. Thank you very much, Serkan Bey. Let me briefly introduce myself, and then I will pass to our projects, and I will share our experience with you. Since 2007, I'm working for McKinsey. In general, McKinsey companies are giving supports about developing strategies. We are giving advices and consulting services, and I have started to focus on the human factor in the last 2 years, organizational structures, how they can just be extended and develop. I have worked on some futuristic issues of the operations, and COVID have accelerated some certain trends. And when we look at our report just before COVID-19, how we were seeing the trends in the labor force and how did COVID affected these points. And all of these topics which are widely be spoken on the company sides, on the actually company owner side and the employee side, how we can summarize the impacts of COVID. Let me share my presentation with you. This report was prepared, was being published before COVID. And we have said that, okay, of course, just like all the world, especially with automation and digitalization, with the change of technology, our business ways have changed, differentiated, digital activities have gained ground, and of course there are some changes in the consumer behaviors, and also the service needs have increased. Infrastructural development and urbanization was another trend, and of course they are shaping Turkey's future and the labor market's future. As you have mentioned, it's changing the business models, digitalization, and also the need of consumer needs have shifted. Even in this conference, doing this conference with the digital tools, showing a very good example of that. In the post-COVID, they have changed a lot, and of course the labor force have also changed. The employee force has also changed. We have got a study. We have developed a methodology on the global scale and applied it on Turkish data. One by one, each actually occupation, which activities they are carrying on, and which of them are focusing on automation and digitalization. We have made a search about that, and we have seen that when we look at today's activities, half of them can be shifted to the automations, what we name as robotics and coding technologies. We can return back to different fields of expertise, but it will not happen all at once. We don't know whether this technology will be feasible and will be occupationally max and will be economically feasible. And we have seen that actually by 2030, all of the working fields, 23 of them can really be automated. And of course, the business way of people will change. And before COVID, it was 2030. And after COVID, we have seen that we are not speaking about 10 years, we are speaking about 5 or 6 years. This is the first impact of COVID. But this means that everyone will not lose their occupation. Only 2 of them will be totally changing. 60% of the occupations at least will change 30% and will be automatable. And of course, some people, the major fields, will be having an impact. We will do our business in a different way. From our daily practices, for example, having such kind of digital organizations is a very good example of this. And instead of having manual operations in the factories, passing to automated styles, and also having online sales, e-commerce enlargement is another topic, and the shops are changing their forms, and shopping malls are now out of actually trends. There are some ways which have changed so far. We have seen that it will create an additional labor source. It is going to increase, not reduce. When we speak about automation and when we speak about digitalization, it is going to bring productivity. As a result of this, yes, some occupations will be terminated, but it is going to bring new areas to work in. And according to our approximate research, 3 million new labor fields will open, 3.1 million job increase potential by 2030. What is essential to do that? And millions of people need to have new skills, and also the person who is working in that factory, operating manually, should know how to work with the automated systems, and call center, online sales, how she's going to respond as a call center person. It's no one managed that. And if you're working in the finance and accounting, instead of doing some manual calculations, they need to use how to make use of software. So it is going to touch everyone's life. And many people will continue to do similar jobs, but the new skills will be essential. 5.6 million people will have different roles in their current job, and 2 million people will most probably get a new job. And what they are doing actively right now in the field of service, the need will increase, and they are going to shift and have develop new skills. And if they are students in high school and university, their skilled participation to labor force will be asking for those additional required skills. And this is not something very easy to do. I mean, totally equipping people with the current needs is not something very easy to do. After telling this, there are 2 issues. All of the companies that we have carried our survey before COVID have responded for the new skills, necessary new skills, and within a few months they have seen the outcome as, yes, they really do need indeed. And yes, can we keep the talent? Can we keep the talent in hand? I'm going to share another survey of ours with you. The expectation of people have changed. We have passed through a traumatic experience. Everybody started to question what they are doing. They're asking themselves whether there is a meaning within the job that they're doing. So they have started to show a trend of changing their jobs. So what the companies are thinking right now is, how am I going to keep this talent? How am I going to motivate to make them to become productive again and to get used to these changing trends? And the second question is, okay, how am I going to upskill and reskill those people? I have spoken about the solidarity example as a reference to this, but all of the organizations we have spoken was asking this question: how we are going to keep our employees motivated, how we can keep this talent with us. And this survey, it was not something specific for Turkey. It's a result of a global survey, but of course all of our interviews in Turkey have shown the similar trend. And the participants of the survey have shown that 40% of them have shown that a very near future, I am thinking of changing my current job. So everybody is questioning their current job. And the interesting part of this is the employers are confirming that. And they say that, yes, we are facing with such kind of a trend and we're expecting it to increase. We don't foresee any reduction in this demand, in this questioning process. Both in Turkey and the global companies world, it's a reality. And another interesting point, they are quitting their job without finding any new job. And they are not taking a better offer. 36% don't have any other better offer. And the ones who have recently quit, somewhat likely to quit, say that if whether I find a new job, a new offer or not, I will leave. This is the impact of the previous year. I mean, they have started to question many things, and let's see what they have questioned. We're asking, why do you think this is the situation? Why people are quitting? What is important? What can we change? On the left side, we are asking it to the employees, and the below side, we are asking it to the employers. And between the two of them, we see a huge difference. The employees are stating that I want my manager to value me, and I would like to have the sense of belonging. And I want that there's a potential for advancement. I want flexible working schedule. And they would like to have caring and trusting and among their teammates. And these are the major points, most important points for the employees. And of course, the employers do not see these realities. They say that most probably they are working a lot and they are not able to allocate any time for their families, and they are not having enough money, and the health conditions are not fine. On the left side, these are the employers' important points. However, on the left side, they ignore these facts. They can't be important. They say the sense of actually belonging and also being valued are not that much important from their perception, from the employer's perception. In the middle side, they're almost the same on employer and employee side. However, on the left and right side, really needs to make us to think as a result of this survey. Yes, the labor force and the expectations of the employees have shifted a lot. I mean, feeling themselves emotionally safe and secure and being valued. And they would like to have a purpose in doing that business. Most probably, after passing through such kind of a traumatic experience, everybody is stopping for a while and starting to question themselves, what am I doing? Many people in my their surrounding are being lost, and most probably they are questioning that. And sociologists and psychologists, of course, and sociologists may question it better. But people are questioning, what am I doing? What am I contributing to the world? They are starting to question that a lot. Okay. As a result, this is a summary of this part. From now on, talent is a big problem. It is one of the biggest barriers, keeping the talents and motivating them and developing them. And they are doing this. In the past, they were giving a lot of money, and they were giving promotion and giving better conditions is not enough. They need to touch upon these human sides, sensible side. Okay, let's say that companies are ready for the future organizations. We have kept the talent. How we are going to upskill and reskill them? The previous presentation, which I have mentioned to you, have been shared with many companies in Turkey. I have had one-to-one meetings and group meetings, and millions of people needs to be upskilled and reskilled. Everybody asked me, where am I going to find this upskilling? Actually, things, automation, digitalization, empathy, and social, and of course, emotional skills are also essential. Entrepreneurship skills, coming with an innovative idea, acting like an entrepreneur, owning like an entrepreneur. And you need to be aware of that coding reality. And by making use of some technological tools, you can have more productive processes. And being aware of that, digital literacy, such kind of skills, problem-solving skills, communication skills, how you can find and how you can actually reskill and upskill those things is McKinsey. We have started a project, and many NGOs have also joined us. We have had pilot studies, and we have named it as Forward. It's a social initiative which we have shared, and we have focused on young talents, and we will launch it within a few weeks. And for the very first time, I am openly speaking about this project within the region, EMEA region. At least 5 million young professionals will be engaged to a certain curriculum for the future skills, and in this education we will have online access. So we would like to have as more access as we can, and it will be in 3 levels. First of all, we will learn each other. What are my emotional and social skills? How I can develop them? How I can have good relationships with other people? How I can motivate my team? So it is so much get to know yourself. And then it is going to look at the business challenges, how I can solve a complex challenge and problem and communicate message with an impact. And how can I navigate in the digital world? Content management, digital literacy are the first steps, and how I can develop myself in those fields. So we have prepared a curriculum, and we have shared it with NGOs, and we have prepared the content, and it will be free of charge, and we will open our platform. Mackenzie will be the pioneering, and also many NGOs will also be supporting in this mobility action. Hope that it will be beneficial, and we will prepare our labor force for the future. I have completed my presentation by saying that. Thank you very much, Ezgiana. I have taken a lot of notes for myself from your presentation. It's a very wide scope, and seeing all of these trends are very important to be heard. With the new normal, all of our life have changed, and we are speaking about new skills and new trends. And your forward project and program will be contributing a lot, and we will follow it very closely. Thank you very much for your contribution, for your presentation. Now I will pass the floor to Metropolis General Secretary Octavio de la Varga. In disaster situations and during the COVID-19 pandemic, the local government's position was very critical. There are a lot of solidarity examples and innovative studies on the local basis and expanded the nationwide. In the metropolitan communication part, you do have a actually experience. Octavio de la Varga, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to be with you today. Hello and good morning from Barcelona. Yeah, in fact, what we discovered during the pandemic, especially last year, there was a huge need from local governments from all around the world to look at experiences, to share knowledge, because as you said, local governments were at the forefront of the answers, sometimes being more quickly answering than the national government. I mean, because citizens were knocking at the door of the mayors looking for answers. It's been, and it's still being, not only a health crisis, what we are undergoing, it's a social, economic, and a global crisis with different approaches. And what we started setting was what we call it a cities for global health, because we're starting to receive demands from our members saying, do you know how we can answer to that? Do you know which kind of changes? Do you have any idea of any policies or protocols that other members of Metropolis are developing? And so we set this platform, which is called Cities for Global Health. If you type citiesforglobalhealth.org, you'll find it. It's a platform, very simple platform, where anybody, not only members of Metropolis, other cities from all around the world, they can exchange on protocols, on policies, on practices, on ways of doing things with different in the area of preparedness from the crisis, from a health crisis. Of course, it's focused to the COVID-19, but also is open to other kinds of health crises, the response and the recovery, because we think it's very important, the recovery. And that related to all different policy areas, citizen engagement, economic development, social cohesion, education, gender mainstreaming, etc. And we have gathered more than 700 initiatives from 34 countries around the world. And I must highlight that from Turkey, we have experiences that have been shared by Mersin, Murat Pasha, Izmir, Sultanbeyli, Besiktas, and Istanbul. And it's rich, and I think it shows, on the one hand, the generosity of cities and local governments around the world. They wanted to share with others what they were saying, what they're developing. It's true that you cannot copy and paste all these initiatives to other countries and to other realities, but they provide us with frameworks of reference and things that that other cities have tested. So that's one of the things we did it. And then we move it on to the political side, because what we have discovered is that this pandemic, and I think some of my colleagues in this roundtable today, they have highlighted this. Some of the issues that we're facing because of the COVID and this pandemic, COVID-19 and the pandemic, related to urban development and to big cities, is that it has not introduced new challenges. It has not highlighted new problems. What has done is to confront us to the paradox of urbanization, to confront us as the way we were developing our cities. And sometimes it has deepened some of the problems, like social inequalities. I mean, what we've seen, witnessing all around the world, it doesn't matter if it's in the global north, in the global south, in any place, that inequalities have increased due to the COVID. Inequalities, social inequalities, especially in big cities. And when we launched this call, we call it, I'm sorry if it's redundant, it's a call to rethink our metropolitan spaces, where what we want to ask is to all, not only to mayors, but also to urban thinkers, to the academia, to the civil society organizations, is to work together to rethink how we need to design our metropolitan spaces, our urban spaces. And there are critical issues that rise. One is we need to put people at the center of urban development. We've had the feeling that during the last years, we were focusing a lot on infrastructures, on big infrastructures, and they're important. I mean, cities need infrastructures, big infrastructures, airports, train stations, but as well, we need to develop cities that they take into account that there are inhabitants there are people that are living there. And we realized that when we were locking people down, that the importance of public space, we need to rethink the way that we develop public space, because in public space is where things happen, is where people meet, is where the economy takes place. The issue of mobility, it's been also very critical during the pandemic. We need to rethink the kind of mobility. The issues about how we develop healthy cities, how we develop green cities, all the issues around green infrastructures, about bringing back nature into our cities. So this is kind of the work that we're now carrying out in Metropolis, is how we rethink and how we're able to propose new ways of developing our urban areas. In this sense as well, we've been working with UCLG and UN Habitat. We developed last year a space which was called Life Learning Experiences and Exchanges. It was a place where, with all, especially that was devoted to leaders of political leaders, about exchanging on the impact of the COVID in different thematic areas. And we developed more than 20 workshops on public service delivery, housing, safety, public service, economy, education, culture, and the impact of COVID on these areas, and how we were responding from different places. So as you see, on the one hand, on Metropolis, what we're pushing is to gather knowledge, to exchange knowledge, and also to find solutions to these challenges that I was telling you. In fact, our action plan, it was just approved last year, at the end of last year. It's an action plan for 3 years. It's called Active Listening to Transform our Metropolises. And we have identified 4 challenges, which they have been, I mean, these challenges were already there before the COVID, but because of the COVID, they are more important, and maybe they are also, it's more pushing for us to find answers. Some of them have been also highlighted by my colleagues before. One is the urban growth. I mean, urban growth is still unstoppable, especially the processes of metropolization. But this urban growth, what we're missing, is linked to social inequalities. So we have to find solutions to these social inequalities to make our urban areas or our metropolitan spaces, make them sustainable and livable. Issues like housing, especially. Housing has been one of the critical issues in this process of the COVID. Not everybody has the same conditions, and that's critical. The other one is digital disruption, and that has been mentioned before. Digital disruption, in terms of different levels, is how the new technologies, how the digitalization is affecting our urban areas. On the one hand, related to the governments, digitalization has transformed the way we manage and we govern the city. It has also transformed the way that civil public services are being delivered, the way that also the local government is relating to citizens. But as well, then we realize that not everybody has access to the new technologies. Not everybody is capable to lead and liaise with these new technologies. Not everybody has access to for example, to internet. And as well, we can remember, not everybody during the pandemic and the lockdowns, not everybody could work remotely. Not all the children had access to education. And this is critical for our societies. And of course, the transformation of the economy due to digitalization, the new platforms, the new ways of doing things, of the logistics, but as well the economic, these platforms in terms of delivery. So there's a huge change being undergone that has been accelerated during the pandemic, and we are not sure that our cities are able to face it so far. So, and we need to collaborate with other actors. It's not only in the hands of the local governments. We need to build alliances with the public sector, with the private sector, with academia, to be able to answer to this challenge of the digital disruption. The third one is the resilience. Resilience is critical. How we build resilience in our cities, and resilience not only understood in terms of environmental resilience, not only understood as resilience vis-a-vis climate crisis, but also social and economic resilience. The three of them, environmental, economic, and social resilience, go hand by hand. And then the fourth challenge that we have identified is the legitimacy of local government. During the pandemic, we have seen, it came already, but if you go during the pandemic, we have witnessed that all around the world, citizens are feeling disengaged vis-a-vis the local government. So and it seems a paradox, because on the one hand, that was I was saying before, is the local governments were the first door that they were knocking, looking for answers. But at the same time, there is a certain anger towards local governments, to the legitimacy, especially in big cities. So we need to build trust, we need to be accountable, we need to be transparent, and as well, we need to develop new ways of engaging citizens and other actors and stakeholders of the territory if we want to ensure a proper development of our territories. And lately, I want to say another initiative that we are developing together with UCLG, United Cities and Local Governments, and the London School of Economics. It's what we call the Emergency Governance Initiative. What we're looking is which have been the transformations in governance, especially in big cities, but in local governments in general, but especially in big cities and metropolitan areas, caused by the crisis. And we're witnessing huge transformations in terms of moving more to a more cooperative governance. Also, the links between multi-level governance, how we link local governments with national governments, with regional governments, in order to make decisions and to apply decisions. As I said before, the way that services are being delivered, we have also here a critical question, is the question of essential public services. COVID pandemic has also put on the table the question of which are the essential public services and which are the basic social services that need to be provided by local governments. In some cases, local governments have been providing services, and sometimes they didn't have the powers, not even the funding, but they have done it too. So I think what now it's at stake, and we're still debating, we will have all the answers, is how we want to shape and how we want to produce. And this is one of the objective of Metropolis right now, is how we can gather all this knowledge, how we can work together with our members to find solutions to all these challenges and transformations that I have explained to you. So thank you.
Sayın Oktober de la Varga, teşekkür ederim Sayın Genel Sekreter. Önemli bilgiler söylediniz. Aslında
You gave us some important information. When you look at different things we experience throughout the world, we have experienced some common problems that we need to learn together. With digitalization, this information was disseminated very quickly. The sharing of experiences with the management of cities. You've talked about examples of Turkey. These need to be increased, these inspiring examples. Along with the pandemic, more green cities, open areas theme is highlighted. You talked about them. I thank you very much. Now I'm going to look at the Q&A session. If we have any questions coming in from our participants. If not, I will ask you a question. I'm checking again. I guess there are no questions coming to me. I have a question that I want to ask. Our theme is this theme of MARUF, Rethink and Co-act. And the solidarity part is very important. We are talking about cooperation, and acting together is very important. This is a process that we need to rethink, because we are going through a period that we've never encountered before. It's something that will happen only once a century. Many crises, such as the climate and disasters, are expecting us. At this point, in terms of reinforcing this cooperation, we have three participants as Ghanem, in order to increase the cooperation with the private sector and the public and NGOs, what type of things should be done, what should be the action plan, how is it looked at with the private sector, how does it appear, what can we do to increase this? I would like to ask Mr. Octavia the private sector's participation to increase it on the local government side. What needs to be done to increase this cooperation and to act together? And Kalemekşi, when you look from the public sector and the NGOs, local governments, and to increase the participation of the private sector, what do you think? If you like, we'll start with Kadem Bey and then Ezgi Hanım and then Octavio de Vargas.
Thank you very much. Of course, at this point, Mr. Varga and Mrs. Demirda spoke about a shift in paradigm, and they have brought a new perception. And it is essential to have a new ecosystem which is going to reshape and restructure the needed institutions and public side and NGOs. First of all, need to become resilient and human-oriented, environment-oriented features awaiting us. So ecological cities are the main core of resilient cities. 7 days, 24 hours, 70,000 people are living, 70 million people are living in this environment. So it needs to have an ergonomic structure. Living spaces needs to be ergonomic. And without having any precondition, actually placing any precondition, we need to show an attempt to create those systems. In financial sources usage, this recovery process is 1 to 7. In pre-disaster phase, if you prepare your country to a disaster, you will have 7 times less cost and you will recover with 7% less cost. In our country, disaster preparedness is very crucial, and we see that all of the NGOs are contributing to get prepared. The public authorities will not be financially enough, and of course the human resources and skills will not be all alone enough. So all of the stakeholders of the community should be used to develop this preparedness capacity, and we need to disseminate this mindset among the NGOs. When everybody gets ready, Turkey will be ready. We should not ignore this fact. And within the scope, I'm looking at once my screen. The sources are not eternal. And we should leave aside our ambition, our prejudiced mind, and we should save the sources what we have in hand. Thank you very much. Ezgi Hanım, I'm going to leave the last word to you. We have got 7 minutes left. We have received a question. If you can respond it within 2 minutes, I can also lead that question, refer that question to Mr. Octavi. And the topics which we have spoken are very well known by the individuals and by the companies, both on the individual level and also on the employer side, motivating the employees and having a purpose as a company and doing something due to a certain purpose is trying to be accepted and integrated. And the majority of the NGOs are trying to address these issues separately, one by one. But unity creates power. There is lack of coordination among different bodies. All of these separate incentives are very weak in impact, but if you coordinate them, you can create power. Public side, NGOs actually may play a very crucial role. And there may be some certain teams. And among those teams, both related companies and related bodies and employees may be integrated by being placed in some certain common projects. You can create benefit for everyone. During the forest time, during this flood time, we have seen the solidarity, dance of solidarity. And my personal concern is if we cannot create a system, it is only being a flame. And it is then extinguishing. And if you would like to keep it sustainable, we need to create a coordinating body. Thank you very much, Ezgi Hanım. Really, coordination and sustainability are very crucial, very critical titles in the near future. We will hear more about those titles. Before leaving the floor to you, Octavia, the question is so much related with you. Maybe you can respond both questions together. After losing the social space, local governments need to get modernized, and they are lacking behind. And the local leaders, with the muhtars, local governments, how we can relate ourselves. You mentioned in your presentation with the local government and people, there is a lack of communication during the COVID time. What type of things can be done in order to empower and revitalize the relationships?
One of the things for the future is that we have a new approach to strategic urban planning with a holistic approach that, of course, the local government has the leadership, but it incorporates all the different actors. It's not urban. We need to understand that from now on, urban planning is not only about urbanists and architects. Of course, we need them, but we need a holistic approach incorporating the private sector, the civil society organization, ambientalists, social workers. So we need to plan our cities from a strategic urban approach with different thematic approaches. If we want as well to create this resilience, and of course, this needs to be done under the leadership of the local government, which acts as an actor that articulates and integrates all the actors of the territory. And the other part is that we need to find ways of incorporating the private sector in funding some of the services that are delivered by local governments. And as well, we need to learn how to better work with civil society organizations in terms of service delivery.
Çok teşekkür ederim. Çok sağ olun Oktay Bey ve bütün panelist.
Thank you very much, all of our panel speakers, Kadem Bey, Ezgi Hanım, and Octavi. COVID-19 days will be the hot topic in the near future. This is what I suppose. And our new normal, our changing life, will always be somehow basing on these adaptation processes and also will pass through transformation. So you have presented very great contributions and inspired us. Thank you very much for joining us today. Hope that it was a very fruitful session for all, and have a good Sunday. Hope to see you again.